In this episode of A Voice Actor Prepares, we're going to watch this award-winning voice actor, classically trained, access some of the deepest emotions you've ever seen. So, as anyone will tell you when you're starting out in voiceover, voice acting is all about acting, and that partly depends on our analytical capacity to analyze a script, to understand how it's working and what the journey is, but it's also about using our physicality as an instrument so that we can tap into that emotional connection so that we can be as authentic as possible in our delivery. Now, this is obviously most relevant with video game characters or with animation characters, but even if you're dealing with commercial script or a corporate script, there still needs to be an emotional state. People buy from people, people connect with people, and so you have to be physically alive and be focusing on the message that you want to communicate in an emotionally authentic way rather than focusing on the sound. As soon as we focus on just the sound, then we become self-indulgent, we become self-conscious, and then there's always the obvious risk of the dreaded announcer read. So in this video, I wanted to touch on the subject of emotional preparation, which is how that we open ourselves and prepare ourselves physically to make a great performance rather than just focusing on the textual analysis. This will allow ourselves to achieve a childlike sense of play, and it will also mean that we become slightly less predictable in our choices so that we can maybe even surprise or surpass ourselves. So once we've done all of the textual analysis, the main priority is that we focus on being as emotionally prepared as possible. And on this video previously, I've talked about how our physicality will innately affect how we perform vocally, even if no one will actually see what we're doing, and sometimes that's a good thing. But it's the type of thing that we shouldn't just try and attempt from a standing start. Go, oh, okay, I'll emotionally engage myself and physically engage myself and then just go straight into it. We need to have a process to lead into that. So I wanted to briefly demonstrate some techniques that I used while working with an American acting teacher called Nikki Flax, who is all about trying to eliminate the intellectual process from the actor's process. When we're faced with a text, I always recommend trying to read it no more than 3 times. One for the sense, so you understand what you're supposed to be actually saying and if there are any pronunciations that you have issues with, etc, etc, etc. The second one to focus on what the emotional journey is. What's the emotional state that you should be inhabiting to engender a specific emotion in the listener? And then the third time is kind of marrying those two, where we focus on what the journey is, where is the beginning, middle and end, where is the end of one thought and the beginning of the other, so we know where to breathe, and also if there are any particular phrases that need to ping out, which in a corporate or commercial script especially, it's our job to do. But then we focus on the emotional state. And what we first have to do is connect with how our body and how we are feeling emotionally now. That's the truth of our authentic selves, and so that's something that we've got to check in with. So the first stage of this is simply connecting with the body by placing our hands in a neutral stance, placing our hands on various parts of our body, and just letting the weight of our hands on our body, not trying to feel or engender anything, and not pressing down in any kind of way, but moving from one place to another place to another place. We're really looking at trying to tap into the sensorial rather than the intellectual. So going from the upper body with the shoulders, through to the stomach and abdomen, through to the hips, and then also working on the face, the different muscles in the face, where we have so many muscles, being able to feel the sensation in the eyebrows, as opposed to the cheeks, as opposed to underneath the eyes, and also the jaw as well. Because we hold different emotions in different parts of our body. If someone is angry, we literally say that they can be speaking through gritted teeth, and that's because we're holding that tension within our jaw. There's some level of science behind this. We then move on to sound while being connected to our full body now that we've tapped into it. This is so that none of our reads, none of our work is coming just from the head up, or the chest up, or even from the waist up. We need to be engaged fully in everything that we do. And what Nikki recommends is that we actually stretch our arms out and make soft kind of clasping motions, almost as if we're a child reaching for an object or a toy, and rather just to quieten the intellect as much as possible, we we just focus at looking at our hands as we slowly open and close the hands whilst rotating our hips at the same time. Now, the next step in this process is to actually turn it into some form of sound. And to start with, finding just open vowel sounds that we can use, little kind of like cries of ah or ee is very good as a way forward, whilst continuing to rotate our hips at the same time. And clasping our hands at the same time as well, with the focus being on opening the soft palate at the back of our mouths as much as possible. So, ah, ee, ooh, ah, rotating the hips and clasping as we go. Now, moving this into actual spoken words, what Nikki recommends is that we actually use phrases which are quite elemental in many kind of ways. They're appealing to our primal instincts of fight or flight, fear, anger, loss, excitement, those types of emotions as well. And what she actually has is she suggests some scripts which are in her book, which people can memorize if they want to, but alternatively she actually has a video where she speaks out these words, and it's a kind of a call and response thing. So she'll speak out the words and then you just need to follow it, whilst at the same time continuing to rotate the hips, focusing on the clasping of the hands and opening that soft palate. Ultimately, you can claim ownership of this whole process by changing the words and coming up with your own sentences depending on the emotion that you want to aim for. The aim with these exercises to start off is just to get as emotionally connected as possible, to wipe away what happened 5 minutes ago, other things in life, everything. You want to wipe your feet at the door with this whole process. But then in future, you can maybe think about coming up with particular phrases that are particular images that it therefore may mentally conjure up for you as well, to get you to a happy place, to get you to an angry place, to get you to a sad place, whatever it is that you're actually looking to do for this particular piece. So you can then make this emotional opening up part of your preparation specific to the piece that you're focusing on. And finally, having maintained this journey for 3 or 4 minutes, again, whilst trying to quieten the intellect as much as possible by focusing on the hands and on your breathing, you come back to connecting to those same points on your body. Again, not pressing down, but just letting your hand rest on the fronts of your chest, on your belly and your abdomen, and on those parts of your face again. And then you go straight into speaking the text.
Stay with me. Don't leave me. I'll be all alone. I'm scared. You left me. No one understands. No one cares. I'm doing it all wrong. Stay with me. Please don't leave me. I'm scared. I'm frightened. Stay with me. No one understands quite how difficult it can be to really find someone that you can trust. And it was only when I talked to a therapist for the first time that I realised that I had more problems than I'd originally thought. There was a time when I thought I could take on anything in the world. There was a time when I really understood what I thought that I should be doing here.
Now, I know that all of this may sound probably a little woo-woo, and in some ways it is, but the whole point is that we're trying to remove the intellect as much as possible from the process so that you can be as spontaneous and childlike as possible, which is essentially what all of these scripts that we're working on are looking for to some degree. That level of credibility and spontaneity is like gold dust. So I would recommend just taking 2 or 3 minutes to do this, possibly, well, very definitely in private, and then go into the reading of a text and see what it gives you, so to see whether or not it can expand your range emotionally. I've always emphasized the importance of doing daily practice, making sure that you pull scripts from something like the Edge VoiceOver library so that you can focus on the textual analysis, on the articulation, so that you know what breath support that you need in order to be able to get through all of different scripts of all of different lengths. But this final stage of the emotional connection is what's really going to bring your performances from good, but possibly very predictable, to something a bit more exciting and really kind of like next level changing. I hope you haven't found this video too weird or airy-fairy. Really, it's just my attempt to apply a little bit of my acting technique, stuff that I found particularly useful as an actor, which hasn't been analytical based, in order to give your performances that little bit more life. Thank you so much for watching as ever. Please be kind in the comments below, even if you think it was a little bit weird, and I look forward to seeing you next time.